Hey everybody, welcome to my latest classic movies and TV actor-actress video here on YouTube today. Well, today, February the 4th, I had a lot of choices as to who I should choose for this video. There were some pretty good choices I had to choose from. One of them was Conrad Bain, who I remember playing the father in Different Strokes when I was a kid, watching that on TV. Then we had Nigel Bruce, an actor who was involved in the Sherlock Holmes movies, I believe, back in the day, way back in the day, in the 30s and the 40s. Nigel Bruce. Then, let's see here. There was John Shuck from another old show I used to watch when I was growing up. McMillan and Wife, who played the Sergeant Charles Enright on McMillan and Wife back in the 70s. That used to be on TV, on A&E, I think. Used to watch that, and McLeod, and a few other shows like that, Rockford Files. And John Shuck, he was born on this day in 1940. And Conrad Bain, he was born on this day in 1923. So John Shuck is now 86, and Conrad Bain would be 103 if he was still alive today. And then there's the one that I actually chose to do this video about, which was Ida Lupino, who was born on this day in 1918. Would have turned 108 today if she was still alive. But I chose Ida Lupino, who was born on February the 4th, 1918 in Herne Hill, a suburb of London, in the former county of Middlesex, England, and died on August 3rd, 1995, aged 77, in Los Angeles, California, from a stroke while undergoing treatment for colon cancer. She was a British actress, director, writer, and producer. Throughout her 48-year career, she appeared in 59 films and directed 8, working primarily in the United States, where she became a citizen in 1948. She is widely regarded as the most prominent female filmmaker working in the 1950s during the Hollywood studio system. With her independent production company, The Filmmakers, which she established with her then-husband, Collier Young, good last name, she co-wrote and co-produced several social message films and became the first woman to direct a film noir, The Hitchhiker, in 1953. Film noir is one of my personal favorite genres of movies, and I am a regular viewer of Turner Classic Movies' Noir Alley series, hosted by Eddie Muller. So this is why I chose Ida Lupino as the subject of today's video. I have seen The Hitchhiker on Noir Alley, and I will talk more about that and 4 other movies that she is most well known for a bit later. To start off with, though, among Lupino's other directed films, the best known are Not Wanted from 1949, about unwed pregnancy. She took over for sick director Elmer Clifton and refused directorial credit. That one starred Sally Forrest, Keith Brissell, and Leo Penn. She also directed Never Fear from 1950, loosely based upon her own experiences battling paralyzing polio, which also starred Forrest and Brissell and Hugh O'Brien. Lupino also co-wrote and co-produced it. Then there was Outrage from 1950, one of the first films about rape, which she co-wrote and starred Mala Powers in her first leading role. Another one was The Bigamist from 1953, which she co-starred in with Joan Fontaine, who was married to her ex-husband Collier Young at the time. It also starred Edmund O'Brien and Edmund Gwenn. And finally, The Trouble with Angels from 1966, her final feature film as a director, about the adventures of 2 girls in an all-girls Catholic school run by nuns. It starred Hayley Mills, Rosalind Russell, and June Harding. Her short yet immensely influential directorial career, tackling themes of women trapped by social conventions, usually under melodramatic or noir coverings, is a pioneering example of proto-feminist filmmaking. As an actress, Lupino's best-known films are The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes from 1939 with Basil Rathbone, They Drive by Night from 1940 with George Raft and Humphrey Bogart, High Sierra from 1941 with Bogart, The Seawolf from 1941 with Edward G. Robinson and John Garfield, Ladies in Retirement from 1941 with her then-husband Louis Hayward, Moontide from 1942 with Jean Gabin, That's a man, a French man named Jean Gabin, who was also a director. The Hard Way from 1943 with Dennis Morgan and Joan Leslie. Deep Valley from 1947 with Dane Clark. Roadhouse from 1948 with Cornel Wilde and Richard Widmark. While the City Sleeps from 1956 with Dana Andrews and Vincent Price. And Junior Bonner from 1972 with Steve McQueen. I think I've seen 3 or 4 of those movies on Noir Alley over the years. I think I've seen Roadhouse, I've seen While the City Sleeps, I've seen The Sea Wolf, and I've seen They Drive by Night, and also the one that she directed, the first one that she directed, from 1953, which I'll be talking about soon. Lupino also directed more than 100 episodes of television shows in a variety of genres, including westerns, supernatural tales, situation comedies, murder mysteries, and gangster stories. She was the only woman to direct an episode of the original The Twilight Zone series. The Masks aired on March 20th, 1964, and the only director to star in an episode. The 16mm Shrine aired on October 23rd, 1959. Now I'll discuss 5 movies that Lupino is best known for, the first 4 as an actress, and the last as a director. They Drive by Night, High Sierra, Pillow to Post, The Man I Love, and The Hitchhiker, which I've seen on Noir Alley. They Drive by Night is an American film noir released by Warner Brothers, directed by Raoul Walsh, who's Captain Horatio Hornblower, I just watched part of last night. Also starring Ann Sheridan, and featuring Gail Page, Alan Hale, the father of the skipper from Gilligan's Island, Alan Hale Jr., Roscoe Carnes, John Littell, and George Tobias. The picture involves a pair of embattled truck drivers and was released in the UK under the title The Road to Frisco. The film was based on A.I. Buzz Bezarides' 1938 novel Long Haul, which was later reprinted under the title They Drive by Night to capitalize on the success of the film. Part of the film's plot, that of Ida Lupino's character murdering her husband by carbon monoxide poisoning, was borrowed from another Warner Brothers film, Border Town, from 1935 with Paul Muni and Bette Davis. Now, we're going to the next movie. High Sierra. High Sierra is an American film noir released by Warner Brothers, also directed by Raoul Walsh, written by William R. Burnett, also known as W.R. Burnett, and John Huston from the novel by Burnett, and starring Lupino as Marie Garson, a young former taxi dancer, and Humphrey Bogart as career criminal Roy Earl, who becomes involved in a jewel heist in a resort town in California's Sierra Nevada, along with Lupino's character. Parts of the film were shot on location at Whitney Portal, halfway up Mount Whitney. The screenplay was co-written by John Huston, Bogart's friend and drinking partner, adapted from the novel by William R. Burnett, also known for, among others, the novel that was adapted into the film Little Caesar, starring Edward G. Robinson, and the script for Scarface, starring Paul Muni. The film cemented a strong personal and professional connection between Bogart and Huston, and provided the breakthrough in Bogart's career, transforming him from a supporting player to a leading man. The film's success also led to a breakthrough for Huston, providing him with the leverage he needed to make the transition from screenwriter to director, which he made later that year with his adaptation of The Maltese Falcon from 1941, starring Bogart. The film contains extensive location shooting, especially in the climactic final scenes, as the authorities pursue Bogart's character, gangster Roy Earl, from Lone Pine to the foot of the mountains. The novel is also the basis of the Western Colorado Territory, also directed by Walsh, starring Joel McCrea and Virginia Mayo. I believe I have that one on DVD. And the scene-by-scene remake, I Died 1,000 Times, directed by Stuart Heisler with Jack Palance as Roy and Shelley Winters as Marie. Pillow to Post is a 1946 American romantic comedy from Warner Brothers, directed by Vincent Sherman, whose film Backfire I just watched recently, which starred Virginia Mayo, one of my favorite actresses from the classic era. In Pillow to Post starred Lupino as Jean Howard, a tired traveling saleswoman who goes to great lengths to find a place to sleep during the World War II housing shortage, along with Sidney Greenstreet and William Prince. It is based on the play Pillar to Post by Rose Simon Cohn. Lupino's character convinces an army lieutenant, played by Prince, to pose as her husband so that she can rent an apartment. Robert Blake, future star of TV's Beretta, has an uncredited role as a brat at the building where Jean is renting, who likes to drop water bombs on unsuspecting passersby. The Man I Love is a 1947 American film noir melodrama from Warner Brothers, again directed by Walsh, and starring Lupino as P.D. Brown, a homesick, no-nonsense loud singer who decides to leave New York City to spend some time visiting her two sisters, played by Andrea King and Martha Vickers, and brother, played by Alan Hale, Sr., on the West Coast. Eventually, she falls in love with a down-and-out ex-jazz pianist, played by Bruce Bennett, while evading the passes of sleazy Nicky Tereska, played by Robert Alda, father of MASH's Alan, at whose nightclub she works. The film is based on the novel Night Shift by Merida M. Wolfe. The title is taken from the George and Ira Gershwin song The Man I Love, which is prominently featured in the movie. The Hitchhiker is an American independent film noir thriller from the filmmakers and RKO Radio Pictures, directed by Lupino, who co-wrote it with her former husband Collier Young, and starring Edmund O'Brien, William Tallman, who was another one I could have picked today. It's his birthday, born in 1915. William Tallman was famous for playing LA District Attorney Hamilton Berger on TV's Perry Mason. And Frank Lovejoy also was in The Hitchhiker. Based on the 1950 killing spree of Billy Cook, the film follows two friends, played by O'Brien and Lovejoy, who were taken hostage by a serial murdering hitchhiker, Emmett Myers, played by Tallman, during an automobile fishing trip to Mexico. The hitchhiker tells the two friends that he intends to murder them when the ride is over. They head to a bar in the town of Santa Rosalia, where Myers tries to conceal his identity and find an English-speaking local. Learning the regular ferry, by which Myers planned to escape the authorities, has burned, Myers pays a fisherman to take him instead. However, as the threesome prepare to leave, a local resident recognizes Myers and alerts the police, who deploy to catch him at the pier. After a shootout and scuffle, Myers is subdued and the two friends are freed unharmed. The real Billy Cook, who took two men on a hunting trip hostage and forced them to drive him to Santa Rosalia, was arrested by local police in Santa Rosalia. As Mexico then lacked a formal extradition treaty with the United States, Mexican authorities extradited him, quote-unquote, back to the U.S. by physically pushing him over the border, where he was taken into custody by waiting American law enforcement. Cook was tried, convicted, and received the death penalty. On December 12, 1952, Cook was executed in the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison in California. The film was based on a story by Daniel Mainwaring, which was adapted by Robert L. Joseph. Mainwaring did not receive a screen credit because of his Hollywood blacklisting. Lupino interviewed the two prospectors whom Billy Cook had held hostage and got releases from them and from Cook as well, so that she could integrate parts of Cook's life into the script. To appease the censors at the production code office, however, she reduced the number of deaths in the movie to appease the censors. Reduce the number of deaths in the picture. So there you go, folks. There's a little look back at the life and career of Ida Lupino, one of the most remarkable ladies in Hollywood back in the day, who was not only a famous actress, but also a director, and certainly one smart cookie. All right, so I guess now I'm going to go watch a movie after all this talk about movies. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you on the next video. Have a good day.